I always like experimenting with processors to find some new tricks, so let's look at 4 new tricks for cleaner vocals and listen to the before and after so you can decide if they're worth trying in your next session. Starting off, we have this detuned Soothe 2 trick. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of using Soothe 2 on vocals, since I think it often strips the vocal of some of its musical sound, but this is a good workaround. To do this, first duplicate the lead vocal, then using either a tuning plugin or a tuning function in your DAW, detune the vocal down or up 1 semitone. Mute the detuned vocal and insert Soothe 2 on the original lead vocal. Sidechain the detuned vocal and be sure to enable sidechaining for Soothe 2's detection. With Soothe 2, isolate the detection to the lows up to the high mids and use sharper settings with high selectivity. So, what we've done is find all of the resonances that Soothe 2 would typically attenuate. However, since the plugin detects detuned vocal resonances, any attenuation will occur to out-of-tune frequencies. So for example, if Soothe 2 had originally attenuated a resonance at say C sharp, it will now attenuate C instead. So instead of attenuating in-key aspects of the vocal's out-of-key notes will be attenuated. So let's listen to the before and after. Although the effect is subtle, the vocal sounds balanced while retaining its original notes and overtones. I'll never know what I've never known. Let it go, float on the ocean. I will, I won't. Next up, let's check out the cleanest compression possible. So after looking behind the scenes of some of my favorite plugins, I found the settings that result in the absolute lowest level of harmonic distortion. With the FabFilter Pro C2 set to its mastering algorithm, and while using a soft knee setting, we can achieve a good amount of attenuation without any distortion. Additionally, 2 milliseconds or more of look ahead lowers harmonic distortion even more, while making it possible to utilize fast attack and capture the full performance, but without the distortion that would typically result from this. A 50 millisecond release will return the signal to unity quickly without causing wave shaping to lower frequencies or the vocal's fundamental. Lastly, automatic makeup gain will amplify the quieter details of the vocal, helping it sound full and impressive, but again, since we reduced the distortion that our compression would have added, the only distortion that will amplify is what is present in the original recording. So to be clear, distortion can and often does sound great, but if you're looking for compression settings with the least noticeable alteration to the vocal's timbre, this is it. Let's take a listen and notice how the vocal becomes controlled without any alterations to its timbre. I'll never know what I've never known. Let it go, float on the ocean, coasting till the sun shows. I will, I won't. Real quick, if you want to get your mixes to sound like professional songs, we have a mixing membership called the Sage Audio Membership, where you get access to Sage Audio University for in-depth mixing and mastering courses, private one-on-one mentorship, unlimited personalized mixing feedback, and 50 free mastered songs per year. Go to sageaudio.com or use the link in the description. Next, let's check out an updated version of something that I recommended a long time ago. We could use click removal to significantly clean up a vocal. So for lack of a better term, mouth sounds are non-musical parts of a vocalist's performance. For example, the sound of the mouth opening, that kind of clicking sound from saliva, etc. It's not a commonly discussed thing, but I've always found it very distracting. To get rid of it, try iZotope's declick module from their RX software. It doesn't matter which version, you could do this in the actual RX platform, but it also works in your DAW. So select the multi-band random clicks algorithm and use a higher frequency skew. Somewhere between 3 and 8 is going to work well, depending on the vocal. Use a low sensitivity setting to avoid cutting out too much from the vocal. Similarly, use very subtle click widening settings. Now, if you'd like to hear what's being attenuated, you could enable the output clicks only function. Just be sure to disable this after dialing in the settings. One thing to note is that this plugin causes significant latency that the DAW can't compensate for, at least not with the version that I have. So, once everything's dialed in, bounce or export the vocal out and bring it back into the session. You'll probably need to realign it to compensate for the latency. Let's take a listen to the before and after. Notice that the small pops and the clicks are gone, resulting in a cleaner sounding vocal. I'll never know what I've never known. I'll never know what I've never known. Coasting till the sun shows. Coasting till the sun shows. For the fourth trick, let's try some parallel compressed mids. I've been doing this more and more for vocals lately, and I've noticed how well it helps them translate to different speakers. In short, I'll set up a send from the vocal, and on the corresponding auxiliary track, insert a linear phase EQ. With it, I'll isolate the lows to high mids using high and low pass filters. Now the trick here is to attenuate the majority of the vocal's fundamental and second order harmonic with the high pass, while also attenuating the majority of the vocal's sibilants and harsh consonants with the low pass. This way, we isolate a range that contains a lot of the musical info without amplifying any frequencies that could cause a muddy sound in the lows or a harsh sound in the highs. You could do this more accurately with higher slope filters, but I found that 12 dB per octave slopes keep it sounding natural. Then, I'll insert a compressor and use soft knee settings with some look ahead and a fast attack to capture the full performance before amplifying the compressed signal with makeup gain. A slow release really smooths out the mids, but I'd recommend varying the settings to find what's going to work best for your vocals. Additionally, moderate to high amounts of compression works well. I'd say anywhere above 10 dB of compression will create a dense mid-frequency range. Lastly, blend in this parallel compressed mid-range with the original vocal via the auxiliary tracks channel fader. So let's take a listen to the before and after. If you're listening on a laptop or over the phone, you're going to notice that the vocal translates a lot better to your speakers. I'll never know what I've never known. Let it go, float on the ocean. Coasting till the sun shows. I will, I won't. Last up, let's combine these four tricks. So the first thing I'll do is set up the declicked vocal. I'll use the one that I bounced out earlier in the video. Then I'll set up the Soothe 2 trick, which means I'll create a detuned track from the declicked track and sidechain it for Soothe 2's trigger. I'll use the same settings as before. After Soothe 2, I'll insert the compressor and use the really clean settings that I covered earlier. That is a mastering algorithm with a soft knee, some look ahead, a quick attack, and a 50 millisecond release. Last up, I'll perform the mid-range parallel compression that I just covered. This time, I'm going to use the same compressor settings that I just used, but with a longer release. So, let's listen to how these four tricks come together to create a super clean sounding vocal that's ready for temporal effects like reverb, delay, and any other creative processing. I'll never know what I've never known. Let it go, float on the ocean. Coasting till the sun shows. I will, I won't. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to get your mixes to sound like professional songs, we have a mixing membership called the Sage Audio Membership, where you get access to Sage Audio University for in-depth mixing and mastering courses, private one-on-one mentorship, unlimited personalized mixing feedback, and 50 free mastered songs per year. Go to sageaudio.com or use the link in the description.